what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Kendall, and here we talk about all things makeup and all things makeup related, and today we have a much needed declutter video. I have been like putting off filming this because it's a lot. As we all know, the end of 2021 is just around the corner, and I wanted to clear out some space in my makeup drawers. They are currently overflowing. It's a lot. It's a little overwhelming. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's get a declutter done. My original plan was to do one declutter video with my whole makeup collection. I just did the eyeshadows and the footage was an hour long, so we're not gonna do that. So this is going to be my eyeshadow palette declutter, as you can tell by the title. Stick around because I will be filming additional videos decluttering everything else: lipsticks, blushes, bronzers, foundations. So if you're into decluttering videos, please stick around for those, because those will be the next few that are coming up on my channel. This video is gonna be super long, so I'm gonna keep this intro nice and short, but just a few things before we get into it. If I'm decluttering something that is your favorite palette and you love it, please don't take offense to it. It is what it is. Everyone has different makeup preferences. And the second thing is, everything that I'm decluttering is going to a friend of mine or multiple friends of mine. So if you message me and ask me to send you something that I am decluttering, by the time this video goes up, I probably won't even have the items in my possession anymore. Everything is already spoken for. Without further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, get comfy, and let's go ahead and jump right into the declutter. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with like the easy things for me to get rid of. These items right here, I'm strictly getting rid of because I can't store them anywhere. I love the product, hate the packaging. I get it, this is my fault. I mean, I knew what the packaging looked like when I bought this, but I truly did not put any thought into how I was gonna store these in my drawers with all my other products. So these are all being passed along. I am passing along my James Charles palette because I no longer wish to have it in my collection. Okay, so the first thing that I see is this Candy Johnson palette that came out with Too Faced years ago. I'm talking like probably 5 years ago. It was one of my favorite palettes of all time. I think it's so cute. I love Candy Johnson, and every time I do a declutter, I say I'm gonna keep it because it's one of my oldest palettes. But like, what am I gonna do with it? We gotta be more cutthroat than that, you know what I mean? Like, what am I gonna do? Pass this along to my grandchildren? So this is way past expired. While it is very cute, I don't use it and it's expired and I can't put this on my eyes anymore. So this has to go. Same story with the Sweet Peach palette. When I tell you I was obsessed with this palette, I absolutely loved it. I remember my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, he bought this for me. I remember, and I was so excited about this, and still a faint scent of peach all these years later. Why would I keep this? Am I planning on passing this down to like great-great-grandchildren someday? I don't know, but I think it's time that I say goodbye to the Too Faced Sweet Peach. Too Faced Chocolate Gold had its moment for sure. Definitely loved this a lot, but I don't use it, and I have other palettes in my collection that I use more, so I'm going to be passing this along. Cinnamon, you guys are getting a whole show today with the dogs. Cinnamon Swirl palette. This is a recent purchase this year in the past few months, so I'm going to be keeping this. Too Faced Pumpkin Spice. I'll be hanging on to this one. Gingerbread Extra Spicy, keeping this. The KVD Lolita palette, this I'm going to be hanging on to. All my Huda Beauty palettes are staying. I have the Naughty Nude, the New Nudes, Mercury Retrograde, Rose Quartz, and the Rich Nude. Those are all going to be staying in my collection. I'm going to be keeping all my Laura Lee palettes. So I have the Glazed Lit Kit, I have Nudie Patootie, I have Candy Skies, I have Nudie Patootie Volume 2, and then I have the Sleigh Bell palette, which is actually such a great palette. I think this is on like super sale on her website. I strongly recommend picking this up. This is fantastic. The Juvia's Place palettes, I had such a moment with them, but I know I do not need to be keeping all of these. So this one I'm going to be passing along. This is the Masquerade palette. I'm passing on the Magic Mini that looks like this. I'm going to keep the Saharan for now. Keeping the Duce palette. I know I'm never going to use these beautiful colors. They are so fun, but I know myself. I know I'm not going to use these, so I'm going to pass these along, and that is the Zulu palette. I'm going to be keeping the Warrior palette for obvious reasons. And also going to be keeping the Warrior too, because I totally forgot about this palette, and it's all neutral mattes, and that speaks to my soul. So that we're keeping. This is the Shade and Light Eye palette by KVD. It's all just matte neutrals. I'm going to be keeping this. And we are on to the Anastasia Beverly Hills. I'm so sorry this seems so quick, but I have so many palettes to get through. All right, so let's go with the first one I ever got. This is Modern Renaissance. This I'm going to be keeping in my collection. I actually reached for this the other day and it still performs really well. The Jackie Aina palette is probably one of my favorite ones that ABH has put out. It's so stunning, so beautiful. They perform so well. Amrezy, keeping that one because I feel like it's pretty unique. Soft Glam, I'm keeping. Norvina palette, I'm going to keep. And the Carly Bible palette. This one got a lot of hate. A lot of people don't like this one, but I'm going... Hi, Daisy. I think I'm going to keep this one because I don't think Daisy wants me to get rid of it. No, a lot of people hate on this palette, but I kind of like the color story. I feel like I don't have anything like it in my collection. This kind of reminds me of the new Cyber palette Urban Decay came out with, so I think I'm going to hang on to this at least through another declutter. This I'm keeping forever and ever. This is my Game of Thrones palette. This is not a makeup piece to me. This is definitely more of a collector's item. I was a huge Game of Thrones fan, so this will probably always remain in my collection. Oh, this I'm keeping because you can't get this anymore, and I feel like I was one of the very lucky ones to be able to snag this. This is the e.l.f. Chipotle palette. Enough said. Yeah, this is staying with me forever. Here are my Makeup Geek neutral mattes. I'm keeping those. Hanging in Hawaii by BH Cosmetics. This is a great palette, but I feel like I have so many similar shades in my collection that I like more, so I am going to pass this one along. This is the little $3 e.l.f. bite-sized palette in the shade Cream and Sugar. This is the one that got all the hype and well deserved. It's a great little palette. I don't use it that much, but I am going to keep it just for comparison sakes. I mean, it is a great palette, but I think I want to keep it on hand specifically to compare to more higher end shadows in future videos. BH Cosmetics comes out with these birthstone palettes every month, so I got mine, which is Garnet, and I have not used this palette because I don't know what it is about this shade, but it freaks me out. It reminds me so much of the particles that are in the Woolly Willy, I think that's what it's called. You know the Woolly Willy toy where you like drag and you can put like hair on his head and stuff? That's what that looks like and feels like, and it freaks me out. I think if you took away this shade, I think this would be a fun palette, but I can't even open it because something about it gives me the heebie-jeebies, so I am passing this one along. Okay, so this is kind of sad for me, but it's something that I need to do. I need to just rip the Band-Aid off. My Tarte lip palettes are, they're all gonna go. They have well overstayed their welcome in my collection. There's nothing wrong with the Tarte formula. As a matter of fact, it's one of my favorite formulas. But with that being said, it's made with their Amazonian clay, and it definitely has an expiration date, as all makeup does. But I find with Tarte's eyeshadows, that actually sticks to the expiration date. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like other shadows in my collection, I could keep and wear for an additional year after it says the expiration date is, and they perform fine. But something about these, it's just not, they just don't perform. I actually wore the Tartelette in Bloom palette the other day, and 30 minutes after applying, it was like I never applied anything. They were very much faded. They didn't perform how I wanted. They served me well. They're great little palettes. I definitely recommend them if you're in the market for just like a basic neutral palette. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You've served your purpose. I will, however, be keeping this one. This has quickly become one of my new favorite palettes. This is the Tartelette, I believe it's called the Juicy palette. Yeah, Tartelette Juicy. You can't get this anymore, and I don't know why. This was limited edition. Again, don't know why it's limited edition, because they came out and made like a Juicy mini or whatever. This is such a perfect palette for me. I love these shades. It's super neutral. It's super boring. Got the pinks, got the browns. I love it. It's got that Amazonian clay formula, so I'll only be able to use this for probably a year before the formula craps out on me, but keeping this. So I had the 1993 palette and the Soundtrack palette. There's nothing wrong with them. They just get lost in my collection. I did a video on the 1993 one, and I really liked it, but they just get lost in my collection. I probably won't pull them out, and I think the person I'm passing these along to will get much more enjoyment out of them than I would. So these are gonna be going. I'm actually really proud of myself right now. I'm doing much better than I thought I was gonna be. I'm gonna move on to all of my palettes from Decay Cosmetics. I'm gonna start with the Venice Fling one, which is one that I paid for myself. This is the collaboration they did with Bailey Sarian. I'm gonna keep this. Now, full disclosure, the rest of these palettes were sent to me in PR. Estate is so kind to send me products, and I appreciate them so much for it. So let's start with the Sugar Daddy palette. This is such a nice neutral palette, but I have these shades 12 times over in my collection. Nothing wrong with this palette. I really like it, but I'm going to pass this along to a new home. The Baby Girl palette, same exact thing, super pretty, but a lot of the shades in here are shades that are in that Tarte Juicy palette that I just showed you. So no need for both. I'm gonna pass this one along to a friend as well. These two, however, these I'm gonna keep because I find the color story to be really beautiful and really unique. The color story in this one reminds me a lot of the Natasha Denona Gold palette, I believe is the one I'm thinking of. It's super grungy, but also super wearable. And then we have the Hidden Garden palette, also by Estate. This one I'm keeping as well. All right, this is the Elf Island Paradise palette. I don't reach for this. It's been fine. It's a good formula. I'm gonna pass this along. The e.l.f. Jen Atkin palette that they came out with a while ago. This is the darker version. The lighter one sold out, and I don't think you can get this anymore. I'm gonna hang on to this because I don't believe I've even gotten the chance to use this yet, and I don't know, something about it, as boring and basic as it is definitely calling to me. I think this would be such a great palette to travel with. And while it is the like deeper version, I would not be able to use this shade as a highlighter as it's intended, but I could definitely get away with using that on the eyelid. So I'm gonna keep this around for now. Found another palette from Tarte. This is the Tarte Whitney Simmons palette. I loved this palette. It got so much use out of it. I past two Disney trips I went on, this is all I took. Such a great little travel palette. With that being said, It's the same story with Tarte. I've had this for about 2 years, I want to say, maybe more. And the formula just doesn't perform like it used to. So I really don't see the point in keeping this around. So this unfortunately has to go. All right, so I think I have most of my ColourPop in front of me. So let's go ahead and start with that. I have the At Forest Sight collaboration that they did with Raw Beauty Kristi. I am keeping this one. Lizzie McGuire palette. Have I used this? No. Is the only reason that I bought this because it was a Lizzie McGuire palette? Yes. And I say that with absolutely no shame at all because I was the biggest Lizzie McGuire fan of all time. So this definitely makes me so happy when I look at it. I will probably use it at some point in the future. I would love to do a fun like green purple look with this, but for now this is just something nostalgic, and as stupid as that sounds, it just makes me happy. So this I'm keeping. ColourPop Malibu Barbie, keeping this because I think it's so stinking cute. I've had for a few years. This is the Disney designer collection that ColourPop did. This is the first one that they came out with. I think the artwork is absolutely stunning on this, and that's what the palette looks like for those of you that have not seen it. You can't get this anymore, I don't think, and keeping this. So these are the 3 eyeshadow palettes that ColourPop came out with last year for Valentine's Day. I am going to be passing these along. Going Coconuts, such a great palette. I feel like everyone that's ever talked about this palette raves about it, and for good reason. It's a perfect little neutral palette. Obviously keeping. Tinkerbell palette is staying with me. Wine and Only. I really liked this when I used it, but I am gonna pass this along now just because I feel like I have other things in my collection that I use more with the same color story. Smoke Show I'm keeping. I don't get a whole lot of use out of this one, but I feel like the second I declutter this, I'm gonna need it. You know what I mean? I kind of have that, I kind of have that like weird feel about all my palettes that like the second I declutter it, I'm gonna be like, wait, what'd I do with that palette? And I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, so-and-so has it now. RIP. But you know what I mean? I feel like this is something good to keep around. I don't know, but I'm keeping it, so. All right, next we have the Mint to Be palette from ColourPop. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one along. The Honey palette I'm gonna pass along. All right, here we have this little cutie right here. This is the Child palette ColourPop came out with. This I'm keeping. I love the greens in here. Gather Around Sisters palette from ColourPop. This I'm gonna keep. Not super in love with this palette, but I'm gonna hang on to it through one last declutter, I think. These are just 2 magnetic palettes from Makeup Geek I have. They all hold Makeup Geek shadows. Here's just some other random matte shades that I have. And then this one has all these shimmer shades that I have, and these I'm keeping. This is the Latte palette from Kylie Cosmetics. This gets rave reviews, and I've used this a few times, and I'm not like super in love with it, but I don't want to get rid of it yet because I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I'm not getting the same results that everyone else seems to be getting with this palette. Everyone else says it's like fantastic, wonderful, can't get enough of it, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm determined to make this work because I feel like I'm missing something here, but I'm gonna hang on to this for another round of declutters. I'm keeping all my Natasha Denona palettes just to show you what I have. This is the Natasha Denona Glam Face palette that just came out, keeping that. Keeping the Glam palette, the Bronze palette, the Sunrise palette, the Love palette, and the Retro palette. This is such a great formula. These probably will never be decluttered. Oh, and I also have these 2 little ones from Natasha Denona. I have the Mini Retro and then the Mini Metropolis. These are also staying with me. This is the Samantha March palette that she did with Ofra. I'm keeping this. I think this is a really pretty palette and I love Samantha March, so I'm gonna be keeping this in my collection. Rare Beauty. I have 3 liquid eyeshadows from Rare Beauty that I feel like I haven't really gotten enough use out of to really form an opinion on. I don't prefer to use liquid shadows, but I am gonna keep these through another, you know, they survived this round. I'm gonna try to use these up more, see kind of how I feel about them. So I'm gonna keep these. And I think I'm gonna keep the rest of my Rare Beauty palettes as well. This is the Confident Energy palette. These are just really pretty. I think especially for like the spring and summertime, these would be beneficial to have. This is the Magnetic Spirit palette. And then we have the True to Myself eyeshadow palette. This is the older one that came out with. I know they just came out with a new one in this exact packaging with very, very similar colors. So I wasn't really sure why they did that one, but I'm gonna hang on to these for now. So these are all my Urban Decay Naked palettes. And I'm gonna start with this one. This is the Urban Decay Naked Honey. I'm going to be keeping this because I freaking love these shades in here. Those are just like delicious shades to me. I'm obsessed with them. This is the Naked Wild West palette. This is probably my favorite Naked palette that's come out. I love it. I did a 2 looks 1 palette video with this one and I was obsessed with how they came out. Super impressed with this. Secret Naked Ultraviolet. I'm gonna keep this around. No. Naked Heat. Naked Heat. What do I do with Naked Heat? I barely use this, but I can't get rid of it. I don't know why. I'm gonna hang on to that. Naked Reloaded. I'm gonna pass along Naked Reloaded. Naked Cherry, I'm gonna hold on to that one. Naked 3, I'm actually gonna pass this one along. All right, let's start with the Vault Collection by Jaclyn Hill. I've kept these in my collection for so long. I don't use them. They're not serving any purpose in my collection anymore except to just have on display. And I don't think anyone wants to hear about them in a review anymore. I don't think anyone cares. So these are going to be passed along. These, however, I am keeping. These are the Jaclyn Hill Big Morphe palettes. This is the original one, like from the very first launch. I still use this to this day. I think I use this palette more than any other palette in my collection just because it's reliable and I love it. And I know you can still get this palette, but apparently they reformulated it from what I hear and it's not the same. So I'm hoping that this formula lasts for a very long time. It's definitely past the expiration date from when I got it, but it still performs beautifully. So this I'm definitely keeping. It has been used and abused. And then this is the newer one that came out and I'm keeping this one. Don't use this one as much, but definitely still want to keep it in my collection. The So Jaded palette that Kathleen Lights did with ColourPop. Very beautiful palette, but I don't use it, so I am going to pass this one along. ABH Norvina. Damn, this is a heavy palette. I forgot how heavy this was. It's literally like a little laptop. This is what that looks like, and I am going to hang on to this. Here's the Edge of Reality palette that KVD came out with. I think KVD is just kind of struggling to come up with new products. This I'm gonna pass along. I'm gonna pass this one along. I'm just kidding, I'm not passing this one along. This is a wonderful, wonderful palette. It's got the neutrals, it's got the shimmers, it's got like a few pops of colors, but it is a very, very wearable Pat McGrath palette. I am obsessed with this. If you are able to still get your hands on this, I definitely recommend doing so. I think it's one of the knockouts of the year for sure. This I actually just got, and I've been wearing it nonstop ever since I got it in the mail. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eyes Smoky Eyes Are Forever palette. This is my first time trying a Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palette, and I totally get the price. Okay, maybe I don't get the price because it is super expensive, but I get the hype, and I feel like I get why they're priced the way they are. They are fantastic. There was no work that needed to be done in blending out these shadows, so I'm keeping that one. All right, next is the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette. This is the palette that they collaborated with Mel Thompson. Mel is no longer with us, and I am going to be holding on to this palette. I absolutely loved watching Mel's videos. I still do. I think she has some of the best tutorials on YouTube, and I will probably be keeping this in my collection for a very, very long time. Next up is the Kylie Nightmare on Elm Street palette. This is a pretty recent one. I actually really like this palette. Not a Halloween palette in my opinion. This is very much more of a holiday palette. I liked how it performed. It's not the best quality, but I'm going to hang on to it. I have a few more Kylie palettes. This is the You're So Money Baby palette. I actually used this the other day. I had a work event and it was an ugly Christmas sweater event, and I actually used this green on the lid. This is not something I would reach for every day just because of how crumbly and how much kick up this palette has. Kick up in palettes don't bother me, but this is like an extreme amount. So I'm gonna hang on to this just because for those rare occasions, I do need those colors. It's nice to have. So I'm gonna hang on to this, but it's definitely not like a favorite palette by any means. I don't know what this palette is called. It just says Kylie Jenner Pressed Powder Palette. Same thing with the Nightmare on Elm Street palette. A lot of kick up, very chunky glitter. I don't want to let go of this quite yet. I'm going to hang on to this for another round of declutter, so we'll see. This is the Kylie palette that I think was exclusive to Ulta. I am going to hang on to this. I know I probably have these colors in other palettes, but I want to hang on to this for another round just in case. All right, next up I have more estate palettes. Again, these are all sent to me in PR. However, I just don't think I'm ever going to use these. These are little quads. I have swatched them and they're super nice quality. The only thing is these palettes are so small. They're going to get lost in my collection. They're just going to get lost, and I know I'm never going to get use out of them. So I'm going to pass these along to someone who will. Nabla Side by Side palette. It's really pretty. I'm definitely hanging on to this. I love the tones in here. It's super fall. Really, really lovely palette. Definitely hanging on to this. This is my Hindash face and eye palette. This is so good. I'm obsessed with this palette. I use it all the time, especially like these two rows right here to just do like a very basic eye look, like dip your brush in and go. This is a really incredible palette, super innovative, I think, and definitely keeping. Okay, so this is the It's Freaking Bats palette that I ordered and then literally waited almost a full year before I even got it because it's a super, super small company and they kind of had more orders than expected. I am going to keep this. I think this is a really unique color story and I definitely don't have anything like this in my collection. I only used it one time for the video that I did, but I did like it, and I don't know, this is definitely not something I'm going to whip out every day, but definitely for certain occasions I can see myself using it. I'm going to hang on to this because this I feel like is just going to be like an ancient artifact one day. This is the Tarte Beauty palette. As far as we know, Tarte Beauty no longer exists, but I don't believe that for a second. I think it's going to come back and all that fun stuff. Oh, I'm definitely keeping this. This is my Sigma Cinderella palette. I love this. I think it is so pretty. This is my first Sigma palette, my first experience with Sigma eyeshadows, and I'm super impressed, and I love Disney, and I love this color story. Keeping that. This I had so much high hope for. I love the packaging, obviously. This is from Kylie Cosmetics. This is the companion palette, and it's all these really, really beautiful So beautiful. Pressed glitters, like sparkles and glitters. I don't even know the formula that's in here. I clearly just don't have the patience for these. I don't like the chunky glitters. They're very, like this one right here is very, it's like a flaky glitter. I don't like it. I just can't vibe with it. And I know I'm never gonna use these. So I am gonna pass this along. My little Divina magnetic palette that I made, and here's all the Divina single shadows that I have in my little collection right here. I'm definitely keeping those. I have two palettes from Cosmetics. I have the Magic Hour palette that looks like this, and then I have the Faded Clementine palette that looks like this. Pretty color stories. I'm not a huge fan of this formula, and I feel like I'm the only person. A lot of people rave about these, and I feel like I just haven't gotten enough use out of them to see why they're so special. So I'm gonna hang on to these for now, give them another go. All right, my battery died, I had to change it, so if anything looks different, that is why. This is the Jaclyn Hill, what did she call this? The Divine Neutrals palette that she did with Morphe pretty recently. I've been enjoying this, definitely a palette that I've been reaching for. Again, it's like boring neutrals, which is my jam. So this is going to be staying with me. Pretty good quality, can't complain. All right, next I have these two palettes from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. Now, I'm gonna keep these because they're kind of just perfect for anything. This is basically a rainbow matte palette, but they perform extraordinarily well. This is a great brand. It's a very small indie brand that I just found on Twitter, actually. And then this is the Surge palette that they recently came out with. A little bit grungier than the original Blend Bunny palette, and it's got some shimmers in it. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. Here's them side by side. It's basically like a painter's palette for your face. Really great quality, so definitely hanging on to these two. I have these two palettes made by Mitchell. This is the one that I originally wanted, but I waited for like a big sale he was doing, and so I actually got both of these for like a really crazy discount last year. So this is the Head in the Clouds palette. Not really my color story at all, but I am gonna hang on to it. These are really heavy. They're really weighty palettes. And then this is the Feet on the Ground palette, which is the one that I was more drawn to. Super pretty, very grungy, and they perform really, really well. Oh, I found another Kylie palette. This is the Kindle palette, and I only bought this because it has my name on it. Color story is fine. Super, super powdery shadows, like all of Kylie's shadows, at least in her old formula, super powdery. But that's my name, so I'm keeping that. It's not like a very common name, okay? You know how many times when I would go into stores to try to find my name on a keychain or a license plate? Never happened. So this was a big deal for me. So last for this drawer are all my Kaleidos palettes. I'm gonna keep all these. I don't play with these enough. They're really fun palettes, but I don't really do fun looks a lot. So this is the Sashimi City palette. Pretty neutral. Got like a pop of pink glitter in there. How fun is this packaging too? This is the Lunar Lavender. This is the Cyber Bronze. Super pretty. And then I have these two bigger ones. This is the Escape Pod palette. And then I also have the Club Nebula palette. And I'm gonna be keeping all of those because I feel like I haven't really like gotten a chance to really play with the Kaleidos formula all that well. So I definitely wanna keep those and form a better opinion on them. This is my last drawer of eyeshadows. There are some bronzer and highlighter palettes mixed in here as well. So we'll just go ahead and knock those out. The first thing in here is this pack of pigments, loose pigments from Makeup a Murder. I can't be trusted with these, okay? I cannot be trusted with loose pigments because one wrong move and you're just screwed, okay? It's everywhere, it's over for you. I don't use these, so I am going to pass those along. All right, next I have these Super Shock shadows. These are all the ones from the Raw Beauty Christie collection. I'm gonna hang on to those. Then I have some from the Disney collection that they did a while back. I wonder if these are still, oh yeah, they're still fine. I'm gonna hang on to all my Super Shocks. These are 3 from the Disney collection that they did, and then these are 2 from the wine collection. Just gonna hang on to those. This is the Smoke Sessions palette from Melt Cosmetics. Not a huge fan of this one, but I am gonna hang on to it for one more round of declutter. I guess we'll just stick with Melt. This is the Melt Vita palette. I'm hanging on to this. I'm like desperately waiting for them to bring back the Muerte palette. They keep saying they're not going to, but I just don't believe them. This is a really pretty palette. Super tropical color story in my opinion, but really fun. So keeping that. This is one of my favorite palettes, the Rust palette. Obviously, I think all the palettes that I say are my favorite are just literally the same palette copied and pasted, but this is one of my favorites for sure. These are my Melt Beetlejuice palettes that they came out with last year, I believe. Not getting rid of these. These are limited edition. You can't get these unless you buy them from like eBay or something like that. Super fun keeping these. I have the She's in Parties palette, going to hang on to that. I think I'm just going to keep all my Melt palettes, to be completely honest with you. There's my Gemini palette. And then I have my little Melt stack right here, which is honestly, like, again, it's a neutral palette. This is one of my favorites as well. This is super cute. Like, look at that. And then you just take it apart to use the shadows. I don't know if they sell this anymore. I wanted to get the brunette palette that they came out with, but I feel like it's very almost too similar to this little stack right here. But this is definitely one of my favorites, and I love the packaging for this. I think it's so cute. This is the Queen of Hearts palette from Colored Rain. Everyone and their mother has this palette and loves it and creates beautiful looks with it. But for me, it just falls flat for me. I'm gonna pass this along just because I know I'm not gonna get use out of it, and it deserves some love. A palette from Midas Cosmetics. This is the Unveiled Cool Nudes palette. Super pretty, super grungy. But I have barely used this since I got it, so I am going to pass this one along. These are the little Sweet Shop palettes that everyone was raving about. I think they're so fun. Definitely not like something for every day. They're a little out of my comfort zone, but they're incredibly pigmented. This one though, the boring brown neutral one, obsessed. And this green one is so pretty. This pistachio one. And then I have this one right here. So yeah, super fun. Again, not something that's gonna get like the most use out of me, but I like to keep these in my collection for, you know, when I do want to do something a little more fun. Here is the Pure Raw Beauty Christie palette. This is probably one of my favorite palettes that I own. On the side you have a gorgeous neutral color story, which I love, and then you flip it around and then you have these fun colors that I probably have barely used because let's be real, this side is everything to me. Gonna be keeping this. I have 2 palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. They have a great formula. This is the Iceland Fire and Ice palette. I think that's such a pretty and unique color story. The formula is great. It definitely reminds me of like Elsa from Frozen. And then we have the, what is this one? The Tokyo palette. So cute. And it's got all these really pretty pastels. Definitely want to save this and do some fun stuff in the spring with this one. And I have my little Smoke Reflex from Auric. I have the 3 shades that she came out with at launch, and then I also picked up the 2 holiday shades that she just released. I have those actually on display on my vanity, but I am keeping all of these. All right, everything else I'm definitely keeping, so I'm going to just run through that real quick. This is the Life's a Drag palette from Lunar Beauty. This is the original one he came out with. We have the Strawberry Dreams, Eternal Eclipse, which is one of my personal favorites, Moonspell, and Moonspell Volume 2. Hold on, I just found this one. So this is actually something that I was just sent the other day. This is a new palette from Estate Cosmetics. They said they wanted to do something a little different. So this is their resort palette. They wanted to do kind of their take on a holiday palette instead of doing like the greens and the reds and the plummy colors. They were like, well, what if you took a beach vacation for the holidays? And so this is what that color story looks like. Super fun, especially this shade right here. Literally just got this in the mail like 2 days ago, so I haven't gotten a chance to use it yet. So I'm going to be hanging on to this, obviously. These three palettes are just like my face palettes from Scott Barnes. This is the blush palette. We have the highlighting palette. And then we have the bronze palette. And those, I am keeping all of those. Okay, so these are all the eyeshadow palettes that I am going to be rehoming. Not bad, not bad. I did a lot better than I thought I was gonna do. Do I still have a collection that's far too big? Absolutely, but we made a dent. I know these are all going to someone that's going to be using them, and they will no longer be collecting dust in my drawers just waiting to be used. We did good, guys. We did good. All right, so that was my eyeshadow declutter. Thank you so much if you stuck around for that. That was a lot. I said in the beginning of the video, I have a few more declutters to come. I'm trying to clear out my entire collection just so I have the products that I know I actually really like and will want to use, and my drawers not be stuffed to the brim. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel so you can come back and watch the rest of my declutter series, and give this video a thumbs up if you feel like it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.